Hey there, all you beautiful souls. I hope your day has been absolutely fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you back for yet another exciting episode of What If Naruto Was the Descendant of Scorpion. Don't forget to pay a visit to the author of this captivating fanfiction and show them some love. You'll find the link waiting for you down in the description. Uzumaki Naruto sacrificed his life to protect a precious person, but instead of going to the afterlife, Naruto finds himself face to face with the remains of a soul that was locked away deep within his own soul. A soul filled with fury and vengeance of a family and clan that was taken from him. How will this chance meeting change Naruto, and will it be for better? If this what if is sparking your curiosity, drop a comment down below and share your thoughts. And while you're at it, don't miss out on exploring the plethora of other intriguing what ifs available on this very channel. Alright, let's not keep you waiting any longer, let's dive right into this thought-provoking video. Kohanagakur no Sato, Village Gate. Pav. Team 7. Kakashi-sensei, I do not like this at all, Sakura angrily whispered as she sat in between Kakashi and Sasuke on a wooden bench near the gate of the village, both of which were looking as angry as she felt. None of the three members of Team 7 wanted to be here or do this mission at all, but while two of them shared the same reason, Sasuke had his own reasons. Village of Wave, flashback. Pav. Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke quickly found out that mocking Naruto was a mistake when Naruto's eyes faded away, leaving his eyes completely white. Before the fire ignited within and around his eyes, the skin around his eyes started to glow orange red and crack. Continue to mock me and I will blacken your bones. Naruto roared out in his face, causing Sasuke to freeze up in terror he hadn't felt since that time. He could hear the raw rage and power echoing through Naruto's now deepened voice, and of course, having the blonde with literal fire in his eyes, and his skin looking as if it would explode in flames, told Sasuke that Naruto meant every word that he said. I am the reason you are still breathing and not among the dead at this very moment. I could have let you and Sakura and everyone perish at the hands of that shinobi and Gato, but I, in my weakened state, came back when I had no reason to return to such a wretched, arrogant lot like yourself. And instead of getting a tiny bit of thanks, you dare belittle me and then attack me when my back is turned. How dare you? Sasuke could feel the heat around him increase before he noticed out of the corner of his eye that a bunch of grass suddenly exploded in a burst of fire that appeared a few inches away from his left arm. What had he done? Sasuke then felt Naruto's grip on his neck tighten, which caused him to wheeze out of breath, but Naruto continued on. If you ever, in your pathetic life, ever cross me the way you have today, I will rectify saving your life here and forcefully remove your head from your shoulders and bathe you in hellfire of the NarutoxHarem. Am I understood? I understand. Sasuke wheezed out in horror as more fire came exploding into life around them, but as soon as he said these words, he found himself staring into the crystal blue eyes of Naruto, instead of the inferno that were there moments before. But, now be gone. Kohanagakur no Sato, Present. Pav. Team 7. Since that time, Sasuke had been having severe nightmares. Nightmares of eyes filled with hellfire along with the eyes of his brother, both of them stared down at him with malice and hate. Sasuke did not want to have the owner of the first set of eyes back in this village, due to this pathetic fear. And yet for some reason, the Hokage wanted him back. Why did he want this monster back in their village? Don't they know how dangerous he was to them? None of us like this, Saruno, but we'll just have to deal with this, Sasuke stated with an aggravated tone in his voice, which made Sakura look at him with a quirk of her brow before she shook her head. Ever since the mission in Wave along with her dream of Naruto a few days ago, Sakura felt her crush on the Uchiha heir dwindling day by day. She didn't understand how that could be possible at first, but as she took a long hard think on it, she realized that despite him being really cool, he wasn't receptive of her or anyone else in that matter. He kept everyone at a distance, and when anyone got too close, he would demean them until they went away. Sakura also theorized that perhaps spending time with the warm, sunny shinobi known as Uzumaki Naruto made her realize that the brooding bad boy thing wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. We shouldn't have to drag him back. He was going to come back on his own, Sakura softly murmured to Kakashi. If we try to force him to come back to where he doesn't want to be, he may never come back. I know, Kakashi replied to her, his voice equally as softly. But the Hokage has us by the proverbial balls. Either way, I'll be losing Naruto as my student. The best thing we can do is just find him and explain the situation. Sakura nodded and said, I hope he understands. Kakashi looked down at Sakura and narrowed his eye in thought. Ever since the mission, her attitude toward Naruto has literally taken a 180-degree change. Kakashi then smiled. Good, I'm glad, that's another person he will need on his side. Kakashi's brief good mood quickly died when he saw the other teams assigned and said to Sakura and Sasuke, well, let's get to it then. With a nod from his two students, the three of them stood up from the bench and stretched their limbs, just as the large team of shinobi stopped in front of them. Well, the Uzumaki hunting squad has arrived, Kiba said with an excited grin on his face, with an added woof from the excited Akamaru. Can that not become a thing, please? Sakura asked with a noticeable frown on her face, clearly not pleased by the name. He's been calling it that since we joined up with them, Shikamaru muttered with a sigh as he rubbed the bridge of his nose. How troublesome. I agree. To have to drag him back here must be dreadful, Shino responded, having been told of what Naruto went through by Hinata, who was strangely quiet, but she had an air of determination around her that was felt by everyone around her. Come on now, do you guys honestly expect me to believe Naruto did all of that? Kiba asked with a laugh. The dead last of us. Defeating someone that defeated the copy nin, Zabuza, and his girlfriend, also, him getting a girlfriend. Fighting some powerful shinobi and winning. Laughable. Neji chuckled and said, as much as it pains me to say this, I agree with this low-level genin. There is no feasible way that your dead last could ever match, nor defeat, anyone that can defeat Zabuza and Kakashi. Sakura hissed at their words, but she then only smirked. Fine, don't believe me. You'll see when we get there, Sakura challenged. Sasuke merely scoffed and crossed his arms. Kakashi looked at the entire group and said, let's go guys. We're burning daylight. The group nodded and quickly dashed out of the village gates and into the wild. Asuma chuckled suddenly as the large group dashed from tree to tree and said, it's not a bad name, with a lit cigarette dangling from his lips. Kakashi, who was next to him, looked at him curiously before he realized what Asuma was talking about and merely scowled, but before he could say anything, another voice came in from between the two. Easy for you to say, Asuma, Anko responded with a scowl on her face, having been told by Kakashi about what went down between him and Naruto that caused all of this. We're basically dragging back someone who was going to come back, doesn't that seem wrong? Asuma shrugged and tapped the dust from his cigarette, before placing it back into his mouth, and taking another drag as he replied, I mean, I get it, but at the end of the day, he's a genin in a shinobi world. He has no say in leaving his team for another village, shinobi village or not. Kurenai, who was running beside Kakashi, shook her head at this and replied, but at the same time, Asuma, Anko and I did this at his age with no issues. I do agree that this feels wrong, but we have our orders. Anko nodded with a sullen look and looked towards Kakashi as if to say, I tried before she scoffed and said, let's just hurry up and find the Gaki. Where would he be, Kakashi? Simple, he's in wave Kakashi stated before he said, double time. I may not want to do this, but let's try to make this as quick and painless as possible. The shinobi lands. Pav. Uzumaki Naruto and Uzumaki Haku. It had been a day since Naruto and Haku had left wave, and so far, things were looking bright. The sky was crystal blue with some beautiful white clouds floating within the sky. There were no threats, no terror, just the two of them walking down the dirt road as a cool, gentle breeze caused their clothes to flow with it. The sun reflected off of Naruto's wave-made hide, which read Wave's light of hope in kanji, which caused him to close his left eye in a wince. Are you okay, Naruto-kun? Haku asked him gently as Naruto rubbed his left eye with a smile on his face. I'm doing alright, Haku-chan, Naruto responded gently, and that was the truth. For all of his existence, he had never seen a sky so clear before without the smell of burning corpses and gunfire in the air. He could hear the birds chirping in the trees and could see the many animals scurrying here and there. Along with the sounds in the sky above, Naruto felt at peace. Something that he had never been in his previous life. Naruto shut his eyes and let a soft laugh leave his lips before he said, I'm doing better than alright, Naruto admitted with a larger smile on his face. It feels so strange to be this happy, Naruto told Haku gently as he looked at her. To smell the nice crisp air around us. To look at the sky and see nothing but blue and the occasional white. To not have to fear that some force beyond your abilities will come and take your soul. It feels nice, Naruto summarized before he let out another genuine laugh. Haku stared at Naruto and felt a warm feeling in her chest as he laughed. She had heard him and seen him with his guard down many times, but seeing him like this made her heart fill with love for him. Without warning, Haku leaned close and placed a rather gentle kiss on a still laughing Naruto's lips, which caused him to stop laughing, before he returned her kiss gladly, before the two pulled away and rested their forehead against the other's. What was that for? Naruto whispered softly, slightly dazed from the sudden kiss. Haku merely smiled at this before she murmured, seeing you this happy, you look truly at peace, I guess I couldn't help it. Naruto laughed and asked, well then why stop? Haku giggled softly, moved away from him and responded, because we need to get to the next village. Haku pulled out a map that the kind citizens of Wave had given her and added, which is, Hisako. Haku then tilted her head. Just Hisako, that is strange, a lot of the villages in our world have some grand name, but this is just, Hisako. Just strange to me. Naruto cocked a brow at this, gave a small shrug, and then asked, how far is it from our current location? Haku rolled up the map and placed it back into her bag as she answered, it's only a few miles ahead. Naruto smiled and said, then what are we waiting for? Let's get there pronto. Haku nodded and together, the two dashed forward to make their way to this village. After 30 minutes of intense running, the two quickly found themselves approaching the village, but as they neared closer, Naruto heard multiple voices sing, Kainai Hisako, Hanu no Haka, Indelible Hisako. Tomb of Flame. Naruto immediately skidded to stop, which caused Haku to stop as well. Naruto-kun, what is wrong? Haku asked, but Naruto held up his hand to stop her. The faint singing began to fade away, but Naruto looked troubled. What in the world was that? I don't know, Naruto responded as he narrowed his eyes. It must be nothing. Let's head to the village as quickly as possible. Something isn't sitting right with me, and I'd like to get there before sundown. Haku looked at him in concern before she nodded, and just as quickly as they stopped, the two started to trek to the village of Hisako. But if they had stayed just a little bit longer, they would have noticed a small green orb floating in where they stood. Spectre, a female disembodied voice, whispered gently as the green orb flew after the two shinobi. Village of Hisako. Hav. Uzumaki Naruto and Momochi Haku. It was high noon when Naruto and Haku finally made it to the village, and despite the ominous feeling that Naruto had felt previously due to the whisper of the disembodied female, the village itself was very beautiful. All of the buildings, from the houses to the markets to even the town hall, were built with gray-colored stones, and near the bottom of the buildings, there were blue-colored stones, along with gold-colored stones as well. Each of the stairways of any buildings that had them had gold-colored railings, and right where Haku and Naruto had entered, there was a medium-sized spring going from the massive ocean that was in the distance going under the multiple bridges that resided in the building. And all around, the villagers of the village were roaming around with miserable looks on their faces, a stark contrast to how they left the people of Wave after Naruto saved their village. From what Naruto and Haku saw as well, every villager had tan-colored skin, ebony-colored hair, and bright crystal blue eyes, and from what it looked like, they all had on the same clothes. The males had on light tan cloth pants with two navy blue stripes at the bottom of the legs of the pants, and while they were shirtless, they did wear a light tan cloth vest with blue stripes on both sides of the vest that went from shoulder to the bottom of their vest. The females wore strapless dresses that were also light tan in color, and also had two blue stripes near the end of their dress, and on their necks was a necklace with multiple colored beads on it. Naruto and Haku looked at each other, but it was Haku who said, "This seems strange, it's like we stepped into another world or something." "This entire experience is strange," Naruto responded softly, but he couldn't help but frown at the defeated expressions of the villagers and said, "Let's check it out, Haku-chan." Haku nodded with a frown on her face, before the two started to walk into the streets of the village. At first, the people around them seemed fearful of their presence, almost shrinking away from their line of sight. As they walked down the street, they could hear the faint crying of children coming from different homes, which was making Naruto fume inwardly. If anything pissed Naruto off more was the sound of children and/or women crying. It didn't matter what the reason they were crying was, but it angered him. It made him want to find the source of their sadness, and brutally end it to make them happy. But what Naruto noticed was that the sounds of crying were increasing in sound the closer they got to what they assumed was the middle of town. And once they turned a corner, they saw a large crowd gather with sobbing people. "This explains the crying," Naruto growled, clearly displeased by this turn of events before he turned to Haku and said, "Let's see what is going on so we can end their tears." With a nod from Haku, the two fought through the crowd to get to the front, and once they did, Naruto saw a sight that had frozen him to his core. There was a tall shinobi that had fair skin and narrowed, slanted orange eyes, 3 tufts of orange hair on his head, a mohawk of sorts that ran down the middle, and 2 similar style tufts of hair at the side with a scowl of pure disdain on his face. His attire was a beige-colored, sleeveless tunic with the symbol of the sound 4 on the hem, and a pair of black 3/4 length pants that stopped just below his knees. He also wore black arm warmers, and a necklace that comprised of red circular pieces, separating long, metallic pieces with black traditional shinobi sandals, with mid-calf leg warmers covered by bandages, and a purple rope-like belt tied in an inverted bow around his waist. And kneeling on the ground in front of this tank of a shinobi was a woman that was holding a small child in her arms. But Naruto didn't see this large shinobi and the woman and child kneeling before him. No, what he saw was his wife, Hitomi, trying to protect their son, Satoshi as Kwankai, posing as Sub-Zero, was approaching them with a sword in his hands. And that was when his mind went blank. Village of Hisako. Pav. Momochi Haku. "Please, Shinobi-san," she didn't know. Haku saw the woman beg, tears falling from the woman's eyes as the fairly large shinobi sneered down at her, his left hand holding a wrapped-up chain whip. "It doesn't matter. You all know the rules. Any one of you blue-eyed bitches touch an Oto shinobi, it is punishable by death." The male barked in response, which caused Haku to scowl in anger. "I will take her place. Just please don't hurt her," the woman exclaimed, but without warning, the chain whip snapped and the woman's head whipped down, which made Haku and the crowd gasp in horror. "Shut your fucking mouth," the shinobi shouted down at the woman, who looked up at him with blood dripping down the right side of her cheek in a steady stream. "This is horrible. We need to do something now," Haku whispered as she turned to Naruto, but what she saw made her step back. Instead of the blue eyes of her beloved, a fiery hellish red had taken their place, and embers were floating around Naruto's form, and his hands were already ignited in hellfire. "Naruto-kun," Haku nervously whispered. She had seen Naruto like this when he was in combat a few times, but he always looked calm. As she looked at him now, he looked enraged at the sight, and add in his angry face and the flames that were now coming into existence around his body. He looked truly like someone that just come from hell itself. Just then, Haku's attention was taken off of Naruto as the woman screamed in terror, as the two shinobi behind the orange-haired shinobi began to move forward as the large shinobi shouted, "Grab the child and hold this whore down." No one disrespects the rules Oto has made for this piece of trash village. But as she looked back at the woman, who was crawling backward with the child in her grasp to try to get some distance away from the approaching shinobi, but just as they got close, the two were instantly cleaved in half by the Kubikiri Hacho. Haku blinked in surprise as she turned her head to where Naruto was, but could only see the remains of hellfire on the ground, which was now fading away. Haku watched as the bigger shinobi took a step back in surprise as Naruto stood before the woman, his entire body glowing with the power of hellfire. Haku was surprised at this. She didn't even see him move from the spot next to her. Haku watched as the loud shinobi bared his teeth and shouted, "How dare you interfere in my affairs? Don't you know who I am? I'm Namin no Jirobo, the strongest member of the shinobi Yonenshu." Haku watched as Naruto stabbed her father's blade into the ground in front of the woman and child, before he turned to Jirobo and hissed, "I will see you burn." Jirobo smirked at this and said, "You think killing two of my men and having that scary aura is going to scare me? You foolish to stick up for that blue-eyed whore and her bitch child. And I'm going to make you regret it. Oto nins." 12 shinobi suddenly surrounded Naruto, all of them wearing the same hide that Jirobo was donning. "Now kill him," Jirobo shouted as he pointed at Naruto. Naruto leaped up and eat the head of the first shinobi, sending them both to the ground, while Haku immediately dashed from the crowd and launched several senbon at the second shinobi, who instantly dropped to the ground. Naruto kicked a shinobi in the chest and used the man's chest as a springboard to launch himself into the air. While in the air, Naruto instantly cocked his right hand back and shouted, "Come here." Naruto lunged his hand forward, allowing the two thick streams of hellfire to shoot from his hand and through the head of one of the shinobi. Naruto landed on his feet and tugged the chain, ripping the head off of the shinobi, before he grabbed the spine of the removed head and swung the head, if it was a mace, into the head of the shinobi to his left, before he used a kunai to stab a third shinobi in the neck, before he ripped it out and stabbed it right between the eyes of the fourth shinobi. Meanwhile, Haku deflected several kunai that were thrown at her, and quickly threw 5 senbon, with 3 of the 5 hitting one shinobi in the forehead, while the remaining 2 hit the neck of the second. Haku then dashed forward to the 3 shinobi that were heading towards her, ducked the right hook of the first shinobi, and stabbed his neck with 2 senbon. She launched 4 more into the face of the second shinobi, before she leaped up and wrapped her legs around the shoulder of the third one, and stabbed 5 kunai through the head of the final shinobi. Naruto and Haku then turned their head to Jirobo, who scowled and said, "Well, it seems you two have some skill, but that won't be enough to stop me, Nanman no Germ." Before Haku could blink, Naruto disappeared from beside her with an explosion of hellfire, and seconds later, Naruto appeared before the large shinobi in a burst of hellfire in a crouch with a kunai in his left hand. Without any hesitation, the kunai ripped through the stomach of Jirobo, much to his silent horror. She watched as Naruto twisted the kunai in his hand and sliced the neck of Jirobo, sending blood splattering across Naruto's face. Haku saw the horrified look on Jirobo's face as blood poured from the grievous wounds Naruto just inflicted, but then she saw it. A flicker of purple chakra appeared underneath his tunic on his left shoulder, but as she opened her mouth to tell Naruto this, Naruto's glowing hands grabbed Jirobo's head and exclaimed, "Now burn, Nanman no Jirobo." Haku watched as hellfire began to burn brightly around Naruto's hands, until the flame covered Jirobo's head, and with a loud roar, Naruto ripped off the head of the large shinobi, before Naruto dropped the burning head to the ground, which then continued to burn until it was ashes on the ground. Haku was stunned, but the brutality that Naruto had shown, but she wasn't surprised by it either. He had killed Gato rather suddenly as well after all, and considering his sudden burst of wrath at what he saw, she should have known he wouldn't waste any time in striking the shinobi down. Haku watched as the hellfire aura faded away from Naruto's form as he stood there silently, his eyes now returning to the blue she had come to love. Without any hesitation, Haku ran towards Naruto stood, and placed her hands on his cheeks. Naruto looked at her for a moment before she placed a gentle kiss on his lips, telling him wordlessly that it was okay. Naruto returned her kiss briefly before he suddenly heard the loud cheer coming from the crowd around the two of them, which made the two flinch in surprise. Without warning, the entire crowd came pouring towards them with hopeful and happy expressions on their faces, as they hoisted Naruto and Haku up into the air, while they repeatedly chanted what sounded like "thank you." But as Naruto and Haku were being cheered and crowd surfing, Naruto noticed something. In the corner of his eyes, he could see the shadow of someone watching them from the roof with glowing orange eyes, before they turned away and disappeared. Who was that? Naruto thought to himself with a frown on his face. Naruto and Haku were then led around by a group of people everywhere in the village. From the food markets to showering the two shinobi in countless gifts. It seemed as if they were celebrities in the village due to the many amount of people who came to thank them for defeating that villain. Both Naruto and Haku were amazed at how kind these villagers were to them, and the two shinobi felt gratitude for all that they were doing. But as the group of people swarmed around them, leading them to the village's local inn, Naruto heard Haku whisper, "This is amazing, Naruto-kun." "I certainly agree," Naruto replied, his eyes taking note of the hopeful, almost desperate expressions on the faces of the adults that led them on. After being led to the inn, both Naruto and Haku gave their thanks to the large group of people before entering the building, who all bowed once more before the two entered the inn. Village of Hisako, Hisako Hotel. Pav. Uzumaki Naruto and Momochi Haku. Once the two entered the hotel, the two walked to the front desk of the inn to see a tan-colored girl with an orange clip in her short, spiky mint green hair, short sleeveless white midriff shirt with fishnet armor underneath, long white armlets, and fishnet shorts with a short white apron skirt over it, and the girl was currently sleeping soundly with her arm propping her face up as she slept. Naruto and Haku exchanged a glance before Haku tapped the small silver bell. The girl jarred awake, her orange eyes darting around in alarm before they settled on the bemused Naruto and Haku. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she apologized. "It's quite alright," Haku said with a small smile on her face. The girl sighed in relief and said, "My boss would kill me if he found out I was sleeping on the job again. Anyway. Welcome to Hisako Inn. My name is Fu, how can I help you?" What a strange girl, Naruto thought before he chuckled and said, "Hello, my name is Uzumaki Naruto, and this is Momochi Haku, and we need a room for the night." Fu nodded and leaned down behind the desk before she leaned up and handed them a key and said, "Last door on the right side of the hallway down the hall over there." Haku grabbed the key from Fu's hand and noticed the hideite that was tied to the girl's upper arm. Haku gave it a brief nod while she said, "Thank you, Fu-san. I noticed by your clothes that you aren't from around here." Fu nodded and replied, "That's right. I'm originally from Takagakure no Sato. My old village didn't like me all too much, so my adopted family managed to get me out of there when things got dicey, so I've been traveling ever since. Well, until I found this place. Everyone is so kind here, I'm honestly not used to it, and while things have gotten pretty bad, everyone is still kind, which is what we need nowadays." Fu then looked at Haku's scratched hide and said, "You're a Nukenin I see, from Kirifu," then whistled at this implication and said, "That must have been quite an adventure escaping from their hunter inn, considering the rumors of the bloody mist." Fu then looked to Naruto and noticed the kanji etched in his hide and commented, "Waves light of hope, that's a new one." "Well, it's a special one," Naruto responded with a small smile on his face. "Well, you must have done something great to have gotten it," Fu noted before she gave out a small laugh. "Well, enough gabbing out of me, you guys must be exhausted. If you need anything, I'll be here." "Much appreciated," Naruto and Haku said in unison with a smile on their face, before the two of them made their way to the room, but as the two walked down the hall, Naruto stopped mid-step when he heard the faint song near his ear. Indelible Hisako, indelible grudge. Slaughter, massacre of tragedy. Indelible Hisako, our guardian. Naruto turned his head and noticed Fu's head leaning forward before slumping to the desk, falling back asleep, and quickly realizing that she wasn't the one that was singing. How bizarre, Naruto thought with a frown on his face, his eyes narrowed in thought. Where was it coming from? "Haku-chan, did you hear that?" Naruto asked her as he turned to her. Haku tilted her head to listen for a moment before she shook her head, which made Naruto frown in annoyance and said, "Strange." "Why, what is wrong?" Haku questioned. "It's nothing," Naruto replied with an unsure tone before he shook his head, unlocked the door to their room, and held the door open for Haku. Once Haku passed, Naruto shut the door and looked around. The room was as normal as Tsunami's guest room. 2 queen-size beds, nice floral printed wallpaper, and a nightstand with a lamp on it. "I'm going to take a quick bath," Haku told Naruto as she made her way to the bathroom. "Understood," Naruto stated as he removed his shirt to reveal an orange tank top underneath it. As he removed his old orange jacket from he noticed something on the wooden window frame. It was a folded-up pink paper, hanging from a kunai. Naruto walked towards the window, pulled the kunai out of the wood frame, and looked down at it, before he unfolded the note and began to read. "Dear Shinobi-san. I saw how you defended that poor woman against that brute of a shinobi, and I thank you so much for killing him. Nama no Jiroba was a cruel person to the villagers, and I'm forever in your debt. But sadly, he is not the only one of his kind here. This village is in dire need of help from brave shinobi, and after what you have done, we feel that you too will be able to help me save this village from these invaders. There are many shinobi from Otagakure no Sato that have invaded this village and have taken their mayor and his family hostage for whatever their sick plans are, and I fear that they will kill each and everyone in the village once they get whatever they desire. I cannot let that happen. Help me save these people, and I will assist you in all that I can. Sincerely, Kage no Chime." By the time Naruto finished reading the note, Haku came out of the bathroom with a white towel around her body, modestly covering up her nakedness, but she could immediately see the angered look on Naruto's face. "Naruto-kun?" Haku questioned, concerned at why he was angry. Naruto turned his head to look at her, subtly enjoying the sight of the nearly naked Kunoichi, before he handed her the note he had found stashed away in his old jacket. Haku took the paper and read it over while Naruto walked to the window with crossed arms and said, "No wonder they were so nice to us after I killed Jirobo. Apparently, they are under siege by the Soto." Once Haku finished the note, Haku merely chuckled and said, "It sounds like we have another village to save." Naruto narrowed his eyes in thought and replied, "Yeah, but we'll need to do more investigating before we just fight everyone in our path. We are likely to meet our ends if we do that." Haku walked behind Naruto, slipped her arms around his waist, placed her lips against his neck, and murmured, "Then we shall, but for now, let's get some rest, okay?" Naruto turned to Haku, gave her a smile, and answered, "Yes, let's get some shut-eye." Field of Flowers. Pav. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto didn't know where he was. The last thing he remembered when he closed his eyes was Haku's beautiful face, and now he was standing in a field of flowers. The petals from the flowers floated in the gentle breeze around him, which caused him to close his eyes to enjoy the sweet smell of the flowers that were carried in the gentle breeze that overcame him, until he opened his eyes and saw a teenage girl standing a few feet away, her back turned to him. Her long black hair flowed against the breeze, revealing her pale skin, and her tattered rose-pink kimono with white flowered gisels, and a red obi sash around her waist flowed against the breeze as well. Naruto noticed that the bottom of the kimono was torn off at the knees, and the top of the kimono hung loose around her shoulders. Naruto also noticed that her feet were bare and caked with mud and dirt, and on her left hand, she was wearing some sort of golden trinket. "Spectre, come," the female said, her voice gentle, but with a tone of sadness within it. Naruto felt himself walking towards the female until he stood to her left, and that's when he saw it. It was the village of Hisako, but all the villagers looked so happy, compared to how they looked before. "This was once my home," the girl started to say. "It was my world, I lived in peace here, but then they came. They plundered and murdered my family, all cut down. I fought them, tore them asunder, but I died in the end." Despite being next to her, Naruto was unable to see her face at all, but he could hear the pain in her voice. "I have protected this village from those that wished to harm it and its inhabitants for centuries, but now more have come, and they have stolen from the grave of my family." "But why?" Naruto asked her. The female lowered her head, and through her bangs, Naruto could see flickers of green energy within her deep and sunken eyes. Suddenly, the field of flowers suddenly became a field of flames, and Naruto soon found himself standing across from the female, but now her skin was a sickly gray, and she was hunched over, a faint aura of darkness around her that resembled ashes and embers, similar to his own, and her body was slightly jittering, as if she was struggling to remain in and out of this plane. "They are destroying my home, they are killing these people I have fought to protect and have taken my most precious possession. Find my possession, Hisashi Hanzo. Find it and bring it to my shrine so I can kill them all," the apparition said, her body jittering rapidly before she took a step, and suddenly, she was before Naruto, which caused him to instantly step back in alarm. "Bring me my possession to save them, Uzumaki Naruto," she shouted, her mouth opening wide, revealing the rows of her sharp teeth. Village of Hisako. Pav. Uzumaki Naruto. With a gasp, Naruto woke up, his body soaked with sweat, his breaths coming out in quick pants. Naruto looked around and saw that Haku was sound asleep, seemingly unaware of the intense nightmare that had just taken place. That dream, who was that apparition? Naruto asked himself before he shook his head and wiped the sweat off of his face, but as he laid back down with Haku, he heard it. Indelible Hisako, indelible grudge. Slaughter, massacre of tragedy. Indelible Hisako, our guardian. Naruto's eyes whitened as he listened to the faint song that was playing in his ear. Bloody, bloody rage. Weep, weep, our guardian. Bloody, bloody rage. Indelible Hisako, indelible grudge. It was singing about Hisako, but it wasn't about the village. "I have protected this village from those that wished to harm it, and its inhabitants for centuries," the female voice echoed in his mind as Naruto sat there in the bed, the gears turning in his head. That had to be the case. Whatever was happening with this village, it was causing unrest with that apparition. But what? Naruto let out a sigh. He just had so many questions about what was going on in this village. From the Oto shinobi he had killed to the intense nightmare in the form of that female that saw him as both Hisashi Hanzo and Uzumaki Naruto. Perhaps that girl he and Haku met earlier would be able to tell him something about this village and maybe even the girl herself. Naruto turned to Haku and placed a small kiss on her forehead, before he slid out from beneath her, silently slipped on his shinobi sandals, and walked out of the room. Naruto walked down the hall of the inn and noticed that Fu was still at her desk, but instead of dozing off like she had before when he first saw her, she was focused on a few pieces of paper in front of her. What was she doing? Despite all of his changes, Naruto couldn't fight the curiosity that was burning in him, and with a small chuckle, he walked to the desk and asked, "Fu-san, got a minute?" Fu blinked rapidly before she smiled at Naruto and replied, I wasn't expecting you to need me so soon, Naruto-san. How can I help you? Need ice? Room service, flowers for the pretty lady. I shouldn't assume that you need all of that stuff. You know what they say about assuming makes an ass out of you and me. Naruto noticed Fu putting the papers into her desk quickly as she talked before she laughed a bit and said, "There I go being a chatterbox again, sorry about that." Naruto chuckled and shook his head at the girl. "It's no problem at all," Naruto responded with a dismissive wave of his hand. "But tell me something, these Odo shinobi that's in this village, do you know anything about them?" Fu shook her head and sighed. "Not at all, unfortunately," Fu answered. "They just appeared out of nowhere and went straight to the mayor's place. Next thing we know, we're captive under them." "So they just appeared out of nowhere?" Naruto asked with a confused look on his face. Fu nodded, leaned in her chair, and answered, "Yeah. It was sudden and none of us saw it coming, but I've investigated them." "Why do you ask?" "Well, I had to kill a few earlier that were abusing some of the villagers, and decided that I would help them clear these trash out, but I need to know more about them," Naruto answered, not wanting to tell her about the note just yet. "So you know nothing about them?" Fu nodded, a serious look on her face. "I know of them due to my travels around the shinobi world. I know that they are a cruel and evil bunch that has either wiped out small villages or forced them to swear allegiance to them." Naruto couldn't help but let a scowl form on his face after Fu's words. "I knew someone like that. He would twist your soul around until you bowed to him. I hate people that try to force things on others." "As do I," Fu said softly, her eyes telling a story that Naruto could not decipher just yet. "I see, then we have something in common," Naruto said with a smile on his face, which Fu returned with her own smile. "I guess we do," she responded. "You should be resting. It's like 3 in the morning." "You should be as well," Naruto noted with a chuckle as he leaned forward on the desk and added, "Besides, I can't really sleep." "Nightmares?" Fu asked him, which Naruto nodded in response. "Something like that," Naruto responded before he remembered why he came here in the first place. "Tell me something," Naruto started. "How did this village get its name?" Fu looked at him for a moment, and then said with a dejected tone, "Oh crap, I can't remember that at all." Naruto leaned away and crossed his arms as he said, "I see." Fu's eyebrows narrowed in thought for a moment before a look of realization appeared on her face. "Wait. I'll be right back." Fu suddenly shouted before she got out of her chair, and quickly darted to the door behind her, where she quickly opened it and went inside. After a few minutes of waiting, Naruto watched as Fu came out with a book and placed it on the desk, and said, "When I first came here, before those damn Odo shinobi, the owner of this hotel gave it to me to learn." "How come?" Naruto curiously asked. "Well, I have to learn the history of this village as a part of my test to become a permanent resident here," Fu explained with a smile on her face. "You want to become a permanent resident of this village?" Naruto asked, a little surprised by this fact. Fu nodded and said, "I've been to a lot of places, and this place has been the only village that has ever welcomed me so warmly. They don't care that I look different to them or about a few other things about me. It feels like home. Why wouldn't I want to stay?" Naruto nodded in understanding. He had felt the same way about Wave when he was there. It was more of a home to him than Konoha ever was. Konoha. This was the first time the name of his village had popped into his head since his time in Wave. He promised Kakashi that he would return to Konoha, but it felt like such a lifetime ago that Naruto had been there and yet. He found himself missing Wave far more than he missed Konoha, and when he thought of home, he thought of Wave more than Konoha. Did he truly want to return? Naruto was taken out of his thoughts when Fu said, "Well, let's crack this bad boy open, so we could learn some stuff." Naruto nodded and walked over to Fu's side as she opened a very large book. The teal-haired girl flipped through a few pages before she exclaimed, "Aha." "What?" Naruto asked. "Here it is, the history of Hisako village. This village is apparently centuries old, and was founded by Hisako, who found it and rehabilitated it to be livable. During her rehabilitation, however, Hisako found the destroyed shrine with the words Hisako, along with a scroll that was hanging from an Ajinata on it, that told the tale of Hisako the Guardian." "Hisako the Guardian," Naruto repeated while he crossed his arms with narrowed eyes. "Yeah, it has the tale that was in the scroll in here," Fu explained as she narrowed her eyes at the book. "Read it, all of it," Naruto commanded with an urgent tone in his voice. Fu looked at Naruto for a moment before she looked down at the book and began to read. Decades ago, there was a female teenage girl. She was the eldest daughter of a Ronin, a samurai without a leader. For her father's shogun had been assassinated by a rival, and the girl's father had returned to the village of his birth to start a family and become a farmer, for Red. Being descended from a famous Onibujaisha, a female samurai, the girl's father felt that it was his duty to train his eldest daughter in the arts of war. The times were dangerous with many warring clans, renegade shoguns, and bandits on the roads, and every member of the village needed to be capable of bearing arms in case of invasion. Around his neck, he always wore a strip of red cloth torn from his late shogun's battle banner in remembrance of him. The girl became adept with sword and bow, but her weapon of choice was the naginata, a long pole with a blade on one end. It was the same weapon that her ancestor had used, and it was good for keeping the enemy at bay, as well as unseating horsemen. Her father told her that she would inherit the Naginata upon his death, but he gave her a ninja's weapon called the Nikoti, the cat's claw. Nikoti, Naruto repeated to himself. Fu nodded and said, "It's a gold blade that fits over a finger and could be laced with poison." Apparently, the girl was to use this if any man ever tried to abduct her. Naruto's mind flashed back to the female from his nightmare, and he remembered seeing a golden trinket on her hand. Was this the Nikoti? When the girl was in training, she worked diligently in the field side by side with the men and women of the village, Fu continued. But every action she performed was done with the intention of practicing her military planting of a rice shoot, was the same as the downward motion of a katana sword thrust. The pulling of a weed mimicked a defensive Naginata maneuver. One day a traveling theatrical group came to the village and performed a puppet show called The Story of the Ghost Wife, the tale of a woman who died and then came back from the dead, only to murder her husband's new bride, by ripping off her head. The ghost wife's puppet scared the girl with its pale skin and long wild black hair. For years afterward, she had nightmares about it. Ironic, Naruto thought to himself, but tuned in when Fu continued on. When she was about to turn 19, a young aristocrat passed by the village on horseback, for red. He saw the girl fetching water from the river and instantly wanted her, teasing her about her mud-caked feet. He tossed a beaded prayer bracelet on the ground and mockingly asked her to marry him, but the girl laughed in his face. She wanted to be a samurai, not somebody's housekeeper. Especially not for a pursy-looking oaf like him. The wealthy young man, the son of a vicious renegade shogun, became angry and drew his sword, and so the girl knocked him off his horse with her bucket and beat him soundly. The humiliated man jumped on his mount and rode away from the village in shame, and the girl continued her training with renewed vigor. She wore the prayer bead bracelet to remind herself to never marry a fool. A week after her 19th birthday, when all of the fruit tree blossoms had fallen and covered the ground like a white carpet, she was training in this spot when she caught her kimono on a sharp piece of bamboo. She ripped off the entire bottom part of the kimono, so that she wouldn't trip on it, and continued until twilight, when she became aware that the air was thick with smoke. She sprinted out of the forest and across the fields toward the village. It was on fire. And there were armed horsemen everywhere. Naruto was getting a bad feeling about where this story was heading. She reached into the folds of her robe and slipped on her poisoned cat's claw, and once she got closer, that the invaders had slain many of the villagers, for red, immediately confirming Naruto's bad feeling. The girl ran toward her house, turned a corner, and came face to face with a sight that made her knees buckle. Her mother, grandmother, and two younger siblings lay dead, piled on top of each other like butchered animals, their clothes slashed and their blood staining the stones of the street. And there was her father's corpse nearby. His head had been cut off, and the red strip of battle banner that he had always worn around his neck lay at her feet. She picked it up with a trembling hand. The girl's heart broke in that instant, and then it turned to a lump of burning coal inside her breast. "Hey, you okay?" Fu asked with concern. Naruto's eyes had narrowed in anger, and his eyes were flashing from blue to fiery red-orange, but he managed to calm himself when he saw Fu's own eyes looking at him in concern and replied, "Yeah, this is just hitting too close to home, that's all." Fu looked at Naruto and said, "I can stop if you W." "Don't," Naruto interrupted. "Keep going, please." Fu obeyed the request as she looked down at the book and read. She grabbed her father's Naginata, pulling it from his dead hands, then charged the horsemen, screaming at them, calling them cowards, and ripping them apart like a force of nature. Positioning herself between the warriors and some buildings where many of the village children were being held, she fought with inhuman endurance, slaying a dozen of the attackers, before succumbing to her own wounds and collapsing on the ground. The last thing that she saw in this world was a young man's face grinning at her, the man whom she had spurned by the river. With her dying effort, she swept her cat's claw across his cheek, and then she died with his screams of anguish echoing in her ears. But the girl had not passed in vain. Her act of bravery against overwhelming odds rallied the surviving villagers to fight back, and they drove the soldiers out of the village, shooting many of them dead with arrows as they fled. Once the fight was over, the remaining survivors of the village cremated the girl with her family, carefully removing the bones from the ashes with chopsticks, and placing them in clay urns, and buried them deep away to keep them protected from outside parties, and while many of them didn't know her name. They called her Hisako, meaning everlasting child, due to her dying when she was 19 years old. Once they were done, they built a shrine for her, to which they regularly made small offerings, burning incense and offering prayers to the brave spirit of the young woman who had saved them from being wiped out. Fu took a breath and read. Hisako was touched by this tale of Hisako, and rehabilitated the shrine as well, and left that area of town alone in honor of the fallen guardian of this currently unnamed village. A few days later, this village was attacked by some samurai, and many of those who fought swore that they saw a teenage girl with muddy feet and a torn kimono wielding a naginata with a red ribbon fighting against the invaders. This rallied the villagers to fight, and eventually, they managed to drive off the invaders. Hisako, realizing that the tale was true, then renamed the village Hisako in her honor, to thank her for her sacrifice and for protecting our home, and since this time, whenever this village was in danger, the spirit of Hisako the guardian would appear to protect us all. Hisako will always and forever be welcome as our guardian. Saikakari. When Fu finished, she closed the book and said, "This was last updated 12 years ago by Saikakari, the daughter of Saikakagam." Shit, that was heavy to read. Naruto agreed with a nod. "Hisako, you and I are more alike than I have thought, but while you protect these people, I became a monster in return," Naruto thought with a sullen tone before he shook his head and said, "But if his tale was true, Hisako would have been here to stop Oto. If it is true, I wonder why she hasn't appeared," Fu said curiously. Naruto was unsure for a moment as well until he remembered her words. "Find my possession, Hisashi Hanzo. Find it and bring it to my shrine so I can kill them all." Could it be that her possession that was missing was the cause of her not showing up? And if that was the case, she wanted him to find it, but where could he even begin? "Wait. Fu, where is this shrine they speak of?" Naruto asked her with a corked brow. Fu narrowed her eyes and thought for a moment before she said, "I don't know, but maybe the elder of the village knows. Perhaps he could help you when he awakens. Can you tell me where he is located?" Naruto asked her. Fu smiled and said, "His home is located a few houses away from here. When day breaks, I can sneak out and lead you to him." Naruto smiled. Village of Hisako, Mayor's Mansion. Pav. Hakuman no Teiwaya. Man, Jirobo is taking a long-ass time with the food. Teiwaya let out an aggravated sigh as she lay on the nice clean white couch beneath her. "I knew we shouldn't have sent that fat ass anywhere. He's probably out chasing some tail on some shit like that," Teiwaya spat with annoyance. Kitamari rolled his eyes at Teiwaya and said, "Shut up over there. You bitching about him won't bring him back faster. You're the one whining about him not bringing the food." Teiwaya shouted as she rose up from her prone position, anger in her eyes. "Enough," Kamimuro said with authority in his voice, causing both Kitamari and Teiwaya to quiet down. "We should be more concerned about the mission that Orochimaru-sama sent us on than food." Teiwaya scowled at the white-haired Kyuga, spat on the floor then responded, "Just because you can survive with Orochimaru-sama's cock in your mouth, doesn't mean we should join you for the messy deep-throat buffet." Kamimuro narrowed his eyes while Kitamari, Yukin, and Seiken snorted in amusement. "We need real food, and the fatso hasn't come back yet, and the mayor and his bitch ass can't feed us while he's dead. And we max out all the food in that fat ass's fridge already. And again, we need food to be able to have energy to complete the mission in the first fucking place." "The food will come," Kamimuro responded. "A food source maybe," Teiwaya muttered with a roll of her eyes. Kamimuro turned around and said, "I do not know why Orochimaru-sama is looking at you for the next candidate for the cursed seal, but he obviously has chosen a poor candidate for it." Teiwaya rose up from the couch and walked up to Kamimuro and hissed, "Listen here, Kum Dumpster, how dare you?" Just then, an Oto shinobi came bursting into the living room of the mansion where the Otogakure no shinobi Gon and Shu stayed and said, "Kamimuro-sama, there is an emergency in the village. Jirobo-sama was killed." The four shinobi in the room looked at the Oto shinobi in shock. "Say that again." "Jirobo was killed." "You can ask the Oto nin," who nodded. Teiwaya began to laugh hard at this, causing the other shinobi to look at her. "Oh wow. The fat ass spit the dust. That is fucking hilarious. So who beat him?" "Some lady accidentally tossing a donut to him and him choking on it." Teiwaya, "Enough," Kitamari responded. "How did it happen?" "Well, Jirobo-sama was being cruel to a woman whose child had bumped into him," the shinobi began, which caused Teiwaya to scoff immediately, but she remained silent as the shinobi continued. Jirobo-sama told the shinobi he was with to take the child, when this boy with bright blonde hair and furious-looking orange-red eyes came and cleaved them in half with the Kubikiri Hacho. That got Kamimuro's attention immediately. Everyone knew that the Kubikiri Hacho belonged to Mamachi Zabuza, so whoever this kid was to be wielding that blade was not to be messed with. This kid and some girl that was with him slaughtered the shinobi, and before Jirobo-sama could do anything, the kid stabbed through his stomach, then sliced up his chest, and finally took off his hat and burned it in fire, all with a kunai. The room was quiet as the Otogakure no shinobi Gon and Shu absorbed what had happened to one of their own, but Kamimuro was the first one to snap out of this and said, "We need to kill this person immediately. Who knows if he will interfere with Orochimaru-sama's goals." Kitamari, Teiwaya. Teiwaya and the six-armed team looked at Kamimuro. "I want you both to take 10 shinobi from the shrine to hunt these people down and kill them," Kamimuro commanded. "Seiken, Yukin, and I will go to the shrine to retrieve that Naginata that Orochimaru-sama sent us here for." "Gotcha," Kitamari responded, but Teiwaya remained silent. Something felt wrong and Teiwaya didn't know why. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.